So it's like moonshine.
So here's where this gets really interesting, because could you sell your service? Like, hey, I'm going to cook you a dog or a cat.
That's interesting.
Yeah. You'd be like, hey,
I just provide the services. You have to provide the animal.
I'm saying more along the lines of like, I am not selling you dog meat. I am selling you a meal, or my service a cook. I happen to have a dog that I'm going to cook. So they're not paying for the food costs.
It's at a restaurant. Well, I guess technically you're paying for the food.
So you have to prove your business-wise that you're not actually charging for the food costs.
But see, this is where I'm saying that you just...
Yeah, you bring the dog.
BYOD.
I feel like if our views were low before, they're out the window. Anybody's like, wait, are they talking about eating dogs? Happy hour. A step short of sophomore.
This is where we draw our mark, apparently.
All right, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Clink, clink, clunk.
Clink, clank, clink, clank, clunk.
Hello and welcome to Strange Happy Hour. I am one of your hosts, Brent the Jesterhead Metcalfe, along to only my left.
Dispatcher Mark Plover.
Because we are down one. Uh-oh, what's happening? And to my right.
The dispatcher Mark Plover.
Look at that. He's everywhere. He's like the comment section. We are here to bring you entertaining news about video games and, of course, the technology that surrounds them. Not just video games, but technology in general. However, you can see we are down one man. We really don't know, but it'll come back up later in the show. What happened to John? But he's not with us tonight, so it's probably going to be a shorter show. We went back and forth deciding if we're going to do an extra topic or we're just going to do the two ourselves. I think we're just doing our own, but please let us know if this shorter episode is what you prefer, what you don't like. We can make this work.
I mean, if you just don't like John, you want to see him gone forever, just let us know,
I feel like if we put a poll, I would not like the results.
I don't think I would either.
All I'm saying is the comments are everywhere. Of course, we have all types of news to talk about. There was the news that Mario Kart dropped, and there's a subscription service that costs more than Switch Online annually for 1 month, but we don't have time to talk about that. There was also the news that I totally forgot. Oh, Minecraft had a conference, but I'm not going to talk about it. So we need to move on to what we like to call in the biz, the important shit. And I'm going to kick it off to you first, Dispatcher.
Cool.
I don't know. I think I'm going to take over first because mine is more personal and selfish.
Okay.
And I feel like it's going to go faster. And then the conversation we're going to have with your topic is going to be much more engrossing.
Yeah, much more somber and probably a little bit more stepping back to also give a little history as well if needed.
So I have a small patch of Sony news. One, we did see the state of play. We briefly touched on it while we did our game session last time. You saw Overcooked 2. If not, I'm sure you can find it within our playlist.
Right here.
And above the dispatcher himself. But on Friday, they actually released the embargo for all these different journalists and content creators who went and played the game.
Cool.
So we got a bunch of details on how The Last of Us 2 works. So for one, this game is going to be less clunky. One of the biggest complaints about the first Last of Us is it's very stiff. Like Joel himself is like an everyman. He doesn't really know how to stealth. He's also kind of big and burly. Ellie, on the other hand, far more agile. There's a dedicated jump button, which makes me so excited. And she can do things such as crawl, crouch. Like this is becoming more Metal Gear-esque, which...
So coming from the side of the person who hasn't played the game before, Ellie's the daughter, right?
Yeah.
Is she still the young daughter?
So this is 5 years in the future.
So she's a little bit bigger.
She's a little bigger, and you play as her this time around.
Okay, cool.
So Joel is going to be...
As opposed to her just being an NPC that follows you.
Correct. And so it's a reverse of the first game, where you played as Joel, and she was your AI companion. Now Joel will be your AI companion, and she's the lead.
Okay.
She also has a ton more options to her, but the enemies do as well. So one of the coolest sequences I saw, because people are releasing clips everywhere, had to have been where she snuck up on an opponent, take him out, slit their throat, lay him on the ground, and then she starts, crawling commando style, comes around the corner, and then draws her bow while on the ground, aims, and fires. And I was like, what? That I am so excited to try. Because there's so many games that have the bow mechanic in it that are like, you have to stand up in order to use the bow.
Oh, because the bow can only be vertical. No, get out of here with that.
So super excited about that. They also introduced dogs.
Really?
As enemies.
Interesting.
So it turns out these factions have trained said dogs, and apparently they are smart enough to know the scent of every other person except for you. So from now on, Ellie actually has a scent trail that follows her, and you can actually witness said trail because there's like a listening mode, so you can see through walls, see where the opponents are, and then you can see your scent trail. So you can take this on one of two ways.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because the dogs, if they smell you, will come after you, which means staying in cover is no longer an option. Like, you have to move.
I'm assuming they have to run across your scent trail or something?
Correct.
Interesting. So you could kind of use that to lure them somewhere if you really... Oh,
so you can either find ways to distract and, like, get the dogs out of the way.
Right.
Or you can kill them. So apparently this game can be taken on in a multitude of ways. The first one definitely had sequences where it's like, you have to fight. You have to fight. There's no way of getting around this. They have hinted at... that will no longer be the case. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a room or two that you're going to be stuck in and fighting a clicker or something. But it seems to be that most human encounters now can be skipped if you plot your path correctly.
Well, I mean, most people nowadays are just going to skip all kinds of human interaction anyway. So isn't that the whole point of playing this game?
By playing the game, yeah.
Yeah, single player, why not?
But I did find that interesting because, one, the moral dilemma of the dog. Not only that, apparently when you take out the dogs or other other people, NPCs, they all have names. So when you take out so-and-so or they come across a body, they're like, oh, Amanda's down. So like they have actually personified all of your opponents, which is like hugely more impacting than you'd expect.
So the interesting part to me there, and maybe this was from the previous one as well, but the interesting part there for me is that means each character almost has its own design and specificity and customization, that kind of thing. Sort of like, Grand Theft Auto obviously reuses NPCs over and over again, but the idea is that they use one NPC and then or character model and then customize them, tweak it here and there, and you've got different shirts you can tag on and that kind of thing, so it feels very diverse and very broad.
Agreed. And
so it sounds like they're kind of using a similar method, but maybe they're actually customizing some of these characters each individually. Now they may have like random names assigned to them, but still,
of course, but still, it's an interesting touch you don't deal with a whole lot. Yeah. I mean, most of the time in games, you kill an enemy and it's over here. Like, this is actually adding some personality to it.
I mean, it's also good to see that. It's also not like Witcher 3, Witcher 4,
Witcher 3,
Witcher 3. Aspect where you kill like a character who was specifically designed for a part of the story, and suddenly the whole story changes because you killed somebody.
Yeah, it's definitely not that level, but I agree. It's a nice medium that's expanding in a way that you really wouldn't expect. Like, I could never sit here and go like, you know what, I really wish all the NPCs had names. But this is like, oh, wow, like I actually killed Brian. That sucks.
It's next level immersion, you know, like all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, he killed my husband. Wow. Oh God, his wife's here. Okay.
But as far as we can tell, there's more to this game. I think they're going to announce some more probably at the Video Game Awards this year. It's usually in December. There's a few other tidbits, but I honestly don't want to dive too far into it simply because some people are very cautious about spoilers. So needless to say, I am excited. And come February 21st, I will probably not be on the show for a week.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Or we'll just record while I play.
Or he'll show up here and, he'll just be like Raccoon, just like circles under his eyes because he's been, up for 3 days straight. So I've
already talked to my boss and I'm taking off that Friday and the following Monday. So that'll be handled. A couple other tidbits of Sony news. One, Shawn Layden, the head of Sony Worldwide Studios, is leaving.
Okay.
Which is fine. This happened similarly with Jack Tretton, who was the last head. As soon as the PS4 launched, he stepped down.
Right.
The weird thing is that Jack Tretton was kind of more upfront. He, in the sense of like in his departure, he went out not only on Twitter but like did interviews and stuff. And this came from a tweet from the PlayStation account solely. Okay. So like Shawn Layden has not spoken to anybody as far as I know about his departure. Not to say that he's leaving for any one reason or another. It's just a very bizarre circumstance compared to previous.
Yeah. Okay.
And along with, he is leaving, and there's another gentleman whose name escapes me, but he is the head of Sony Japan. Not Shuhei Yoshida, but another gentleman. So there's a lot of executive level
like
people.
higher up people that are leaving. That's weird.
So you could say that it bodes well for the fact that they're not necessary for the PlayStation 5, or it bodes ill. I guess we'll find out next year.
I mean, game streaming's supposed to be the next thing or whatever. So some of the headlines I'd seen actually, because PS Now is finally reducing price.
We're going to talk about that.
We'll get there. But a lot of the headlines I had seen was in preparation for streaming.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know if maybe they're, moving on, or if they're just sort of not seeing a future for them there in that respect. I mean, because if console gaming is going to disappear, and maybe Sony and Microsoft and everybody else is finally seeing the writing on the wall there, with except for maybe Nintendo, who has their own niche thing anyway. But
they'll be around forever. They're a toy company.
But like as soon as Sony and Microsoft came out and said that they were doing a partnership, was like,
yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
So I maybe like some of these people are starting to see writing on the wall, I guess, and
it's possible,
wanting to get themselves out comfortable while they have the control to do so.
I think that's entirely in the realm of possibilities. I think there's also the fact that like Shawn Layden's been at Sony since 1987. Like he's been there for over 30 years.
Holy cow!
So I'm sure he's ready for new endeavors. Jack Tretton was similar. It wasn't as long, but it was like I've been here for a minute. I'm kind of ready to go. And now that the ship has been righted, like Jack Tretton even mentioned, and the only reason I'm talking about him is because in my lifetime, he's really the only other major CEO level individual that I've paid attention to from Sony's PlayStation brand. But he even mentioned like before he actually left, he wanted to leave sooner, but the PS3 was in such like conflict and turmoil. He wanted to make sure everything was smooth, and then the PS4 started ramping up. He's like, I will launch this, and then I'm out the door. So. Okay. Best of luck, Shawn, whatever you're moving on to. It is really interesting to watch Shawn leave. Reggie left early this year to go teach at Cornell. So all these different people have made their names at companies I love, watch them walk out the door. So
yeah. Cool. I mean, they've obviously had long, successful careers.
Yeah.
They're doing it. So good on him.
Yeah. And we touched on it briefly, but PlayStation Now's prices have dropped considerably. So previously it was $20 a month, $100 for a year.
Yep.
It's a pretty steep price. They've now...
I don't think that's unreasonable for what you get, though.
It's not... Well, okay, so I'll put it this way. It's not unreasonable except for the $20 a month. I think that $20 monthly...
Yeah. They want to push you to go to... And I get it. They want to push you to go to the annual subscription.
I would have been 100% okay if they did, we're going to do $10 a month, because that equates to $120. Yeah. And then if you pay annually, you get a $20 discount. They've instead did one better, where it's $10 a month, and now it's a $60 annual subscription.
Yep.
So this is on par with... let's move that right there. Xbox Game Pass. They have roughly 800 titles available. They're PS2, PS3, and PS4. And they have now also decided they're going to start doing what they're calling their marquee titles are going to be added on. Now, it's a little confusing on how this works, because I saw some people say like, oh, they're going to put these games in there forever. But some of the vernacular on the PlayStation website pointed out that these marquee titles are going to be temporary.
Right.
So they're bringing in God of War this month, Infamous Second Sons, and a couple of other games. The Grand Theft Auto 5 is another one.
Okay.
And those marquee titles will be like, hey, when you join now, these are the games you're going to want to play on top of everything else. But come around February, they're going to rotate out for another selection of marquee titles.
Okay.
Which I think is actually smart. It depends on how you take it, because the Xbox approach of let's take all of our exclusives, we're going to put them on Game Pass day one, and they stay consumer friendly, like very good for consumers. You have to pay less money.
Yeah, absolutely. You get the tremendous value out of it.
Correct. But I'm always concerned about how they actually fund those games. Like, how off of $10 a month are you paying for this? Whereas I think with Sony's approach, they get a little bit of both. So they're going to release a marquee title. So Last of Us 2 is coming out in February. That'll be by itself for probably 8 months, and then they throw it in for a couple months onto now.
I mean, I think the interesting part is, or I think the realistic part there is that these are not really profitable industries for them, probably offhand.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you probably make a decent amount of money off of console sales and some points and some extra stuff, that happens, that kind of thing, or like paying for online service, that kind of thing, like you do with Xbox Gold and all that. But realistically, you've got Microsoft, who makes all of their money from Windows, and you've got Sony, who makes all of their money from, well, everything. So,
well, you have to remember, though, Sony was in the red for years. And the only reason they even made it back in the black was because of their PlayStation brand.
Really?
Yeah. So Sony is different than Xbox and Nintendo, but both of them have kind of shifted. Nintendo's always made their own games. Obviously, we have Link and Mario and all that.
But obviously, game sales are where it's at, because that's the only way to continuously make money like that.
But they seem to kind of like, I would argue that an average Nintendo year, you're getting 5 big titles.
Oh, yeah.
Sony tries to build in smaller titles along with the marquee, so they're releasing arguably 10 titles in-house made by Sony exclusive to PlayStation. And that's where they make their money, because they can take those costs of whatever the development is for Naughty Dog and chalk that up to investment for the PlayStation brand, but it then sells hardware, and then people are buying more software.
So they can't be releasing all of their AAA titles on PS Now then, can they?
Exactly why I don't think they will.
Okay.
So, because they do use that to help fund other projects they're doing.
Yeah, that
like
makes sense.
Dreams, which is it's
the game for development platform.
Yeah. And then the VR, of course. The VR is successful in terms of it sold well enough, but obviously research and everything has to go, like, they're going to need money for that. So any means to help.
Well, that and PC VR just took a massive leap forward with the new Oculus. Whatchamacallit? I'll get back to it.
Are you talking about the Quest Link?
Yes, the Quest. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the completely wireless setup with its own processor, that kind of thing, is already off to a good start. That kind of thing, and then coming with actual connection to PC.
Yeah, the Link alone
will be the next piece. So
I can guarantee that Oculus will no longer release the original. Like the original is going to be wiped out. It's going to be you get a Quest, and then you can bundle it with a Link, and that way, if you want the same power as the high end,
you don't need any of the room stuff. You can do it anywhere you want.
Oh my god! Yeah,
and in a space up to 15 meters by 15 meters, apparently.
That's just it's a lot.
Like that's a big space, but PSVR's got a long way to catch up. I think if they're going to get to that kind of level. So
yeah, I agree. Which means they need money to fund it. So, but PlayStation Now being competitive is very interesting because it puts them on par with Xbox. For years, people have been clamoring, ever since Game Pass started, like the best place to get a bang for your buck is an Xbox. You can now argue the same thing for PlayStation because, again, 800 titles, a lot going on.
Well, and that's the thing, depending on what kind of exclusives you want too, because Sony's got more.
Absolutely.
By a long shot. And I mean, the only thing decent you'll get out of Microsoft anymore is Gears, which you can get on PC, which I didn't realize you can get on Steam, by the way.
I didn't know
Gears 5 is advertised and listed on Steam.
That's great.
And Halo, which is also going to be coming to Windows Game Store, which I'll be interested. Also might come to Steam now that I've seen Gears 5. So I'm not sure yet.
Isn't Master Chief Collection on Steam now too?
I don't know, but I'm going to have to dig for it
I'm pretty
sure. I kind of want to play that.
Ooh, well, maybe we could include that in one of our game nights.
Yeah, there we go.
So all of this is great news for Sony. I think it's super smart. It's right before the holiday season. I guarantee there's going to be some bundles. Any sort of PlayStation bundle coming out is going to have you get PlayStation Now for a month, 3 months, whatever. So.
Oh, yeah, because they're going to want everybody going to it and saying, hey, by the way, it's cheaper now. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I 100% will use it. Like I started using it originally when it first came out. Ran some tests. It was okay. It wasn't great. My internet at the house isn't great. You can now download the games to PS4. You can't do it on PC. You can stream on PC, but you can't download the games. I think that's funny. They're like, we're going to make sure we're protecting our games.
We got to save our consoles here. Not for long, you don't.
But you can download the games, and now it's $10 a month. Any month of my next year is taken up. But come summer next year, when this summer is a great example where there were games that I had to play but I wasn't interested in. But if I could spend $10 for a month and be like, cool, I'm going to try that, and that, and
well, so you're much more of an in-depth person than I am, or a dedicated person than I am in that regard. Because if it's something that I don't feel like I'm going to be interested in, I'm probably just not going to make the investment. Granted, I don't devote the same amount of time like you do.
Fair enough.
But you obviously, even if you don't like a game, you're gonna be like, well, let me see it through at least, and I commend you for that.
He commends me.
I just can't make time like that.
Well, there's also the other games I haven't played yet that I've wanted to. So Spec Ops Online is one that's revered as a third-person shooter, but it's written about essentially PTSD.
That was a while back, wasn't it?
It was.
How old is that? Because I remember hearing that title a lot.
2011 would be my guess. We'll look it up later. But that's available on Now. I checked it out today. And there's a plethora of games that I don't want to buy them because I don't really want to own them in the sense of I want to play it forever. But there's definitely a moment where I'm like, I haven't played Devil May Cry in forever. Dropping $10 for the month and playing Devil May Cry and be like, okay, what else could I find? Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I got a little brother who comes over all the time. He's coming over next weekend.
For $10 a month, suddenly you've got an infinite amount of entertainment.
Whatever he wants to play. So, yeah, I think it's great. So,
all right, that sounds wonderful.
Maybe I'll do a little review and let everyone know about it.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think it's time to move on to your topic, which is far more important.
A little bit more somber in this note.
It is somber, but I think it's also interesting.
Yes, so it's net neutrality.
We've never talked about this before.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, in case you guys don't know what net neutrality is, first off, if you live in the States, what kind of rock have you been living under? Second, if you're not from the States, or if you just don't know what net neutrality is, net neutrality has been a long debate now for, what is it? It's about 2 years, I think. Or no, 3 years. Or no, 4 years. It was 2015.
It's been a while.
2015 was whenever the argument first came up, and the previous FCC director, Tom Wheeler, put in place net neutrality rules that barred ISPs from being able to restrict or limit the traffic and prioritize certain traffic across their networks that were from the internet or giving access to the service through the internet.
ISPs being your internet providers.
Internet service providers, yes. So net neutrality is a very good thing as far as a free and open market on the internet. Now, the FCC has sort of shied away from this as of Ajit Pai's reign, whenever he got put in place anyway, under, well, I guess he was brought in under Trump, wasn't he?
Yeah,
So,
that big Reese's mug motherfucker. Go ahead and hit it. I hate that guy. He's smug as hell.
But yeah, that big Reese's mug. That's if you get a chance, go to Google Images and look up Ajit Pai Reese's. You'll see it. But anyway,
not racist. Reese's. I think it's important.
Anyway, so Ajit Pai overturned those rules and redacted them entirely, which gave the market technically for ISPs the ability to be free and open. And the way that they worded it is, well, if we don't limit the ISPs, then they have the ability to expand as much as they want. Which, by the way, doesn't matter here. They have a monopoly in every place that you live.
Yeah, herein lies the problem with that thought process: is that they monopolize themselves on purpose.
Yep.
Where AT&T goes to Spectrum and says, "Hey, you have your territory, I have mine. We're good, right?" Yeah.
So the way that that's supposed to be fought with the redaction of net neutrality, or the idea anyway, is that the FCC passed that control over, and this is the decision that was done in 2000 or last year, 2000.
Yep.
No, 17, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Whenever the net neutrality rules were redacted by Ajit Pai, that said the Federal Trade Commission, FTC?
Yeah, FTC.
The FTC was going to be the one to step in and be responsible for policing that sort of issue specifically. Like they're going to, okay, well, so first off, there's a transparency rule that ISPs have to publicly announce which ones they're restricting and which ones they're giving high-speed lanes to. Now, the question is whether or not they're audited to say so is a whole other thing. The other side of that, too, is that the FTC is supposed to be responsible for policing whether or not they're having closed-door conversations to determine whether or not they're trying to monopolize each other, which, by the way, have already done.
Yeah.
People have already come out and announced that that's happened. There have already been whistleblowers on this. So the thing is that if they just continue to abide by those rules, regardless of whether or not they had the meetings now, like, you can't force a company to go into a place that they don't want to go into. So if AT&T, for example, like we only have Spectrum in this neighborhood, if AT&T and Spectrum made an agreement for this neighborhood that says Spectrum's only going to offer services here, what incentive does AT&T have to come in here other than maybe gaining a few customers, but suddenly having to fight with Spectrum over this?
Yeah.
And suddenly Spectrum's blocking AT&T stuff like NBC and a bunch of the other AT&T networks that are there. So what benefit do they really have if they just don't abide by what they've already got?
Yeah.
Or continuing to make more of them.
Which is exactly what we're talking about. That's the issue.
So basically a breakthrough court decision was made today. Specifically today, October 1st, 2019. A couple of large companies, just Mozilla, Etsy, and one you probably never heard of, Reddit.
Oh, yeah, I've never heard that one.
The higher-ups anyway from those three companies, as well as 22 attorneys general from various states.
Wow.
22. I didn't realize that was that big of a turnout. Mozilla, Etsy, and Reddit were trying to fight for the fact that them redacting that information, or redacting the net neutrality rules anyway, was, again, actually not done with a correct decision, or not done with the correct research in mind as far as how the internet and internet service providers work. So they were trying to fight that on a court decision. However, the judge ruled in favor of the FCC on that decision.
Yep.
Now, the 22 attorneys general, they were pushing a lawsuit against the fact that the FCC does not have jurisdiction to say that the states can't make their own decision on that.
Yeah.
Well, the states can make their own decision on marijuana. Why can't the states make their own decisions
on
against,
ISP providers
on ISP providers and the internet? Like, yeah, it's a global thing. However, why wouldn't they be able to make that decision anyway? Granted, it'll complicate things as far as broadband providers are concerned. But the judge did rule in favor of the 22 attorneys general that were there in saying that the states have the ability to enforce and enact their own net neutrality rules, which, by the way, California already has one.
Yeah, I was about to say, states like California and other very large tech industries.
California is a pioneer here, and they started this movement. And then, of course, the lawsuit had to be started, and what is it? Trump's Department of Justice actually tried to fight California on this.
Don't worry, they're going to try and step in and prevent the states, because heaven forbid we have car batteries or cars that have more fuel efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. So
I digress.
So Trump's Department of Justice was actually trying to fight California whenever they enacted the legislation. However, their investigation actually got put on hold pending the outcome of this lawsuit.
Okay.
And because they did rule in favor of the states,
So now
the Department of Justice is going to have to pull back on this. They haven't done it yet. Obviously, it just happened today. But they're going to have to pull back on it. So the interesting part here is going to be what comes over the next couple of years. First off, net neutrality rules are going to be left up to the individual states. So the thing is, tech-centric states, California, Texas, North Carolina even, New York, Pennsylvania, like
Illinois, because that's where Chicago is.
Washington State, a bunch of those others anyway. Most of the West Coast states anyway are going to pretty much abide by whatever California does. And right now, California's got, literally the complete net neutrality rules in place and the laws as is, but still leaving room for an open market in that respect.
Okay.
Basically, the laws that they've got in place just say traffic can't be limited depending on what type of traffic you're trying to pull through, what services are supposed to be provided. You can't force, companies to pay the ISPs for, whatever services they provide for your company online.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be a free and open internet, that kind of thing. But does pull out a lot of the things that were in place with the net neutrality rules that were actually kind of shady.
So could we say under California's rule, AT&T couldn't force Netflix to pay more for their users to have a better streaming service?
Correct, and vice versa.
Okay.
So because it was two sides of the coin, in that respect, I forget who they're capable. I think Cox Communications is their
or
Comcast.
Comcast,
Yeah. So they couldn't force Netflix to pay them for express lane service or just normal access to the internet or to their customers and or under their consumer base.
Yeah.
And vice versa, you also couldn't force the ISP's customers to pay for access to Netflix's services on top of a Netflix subscription and everything too. So.
Good. I mean, it is a really frustrating spot. The United States is such a weird space to live in politically, just in general, because from a national perspective, there's a lot of people who just don't believe that the national government should have that much power.
Which is funny considering having conversations with people from Canada.
Oh, 100%.
You know, that they're like, really, these are the kinds of things that happen. Like I can't believe that's really what you deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just it's kind of I don't want to call it the Wild West because, well, maybe it's like certain towns, like have like a mayor that just has his fist in everything for some reason. So the mayor would be our government.
Literally in everything. It's very terrible for babies. I think what it's more interesting is that we have a set of rules that are like, okay, everybody has to listen to these on this specifically, but all the other stuff you figured out. Like, we don't care. You figured it out.
Exactly.
And so traveling from one state to another, and it can be very minor. So I recently traveled from North Carolina through to Kentucky, which means I have to go through Tennessee. Tennessee, as of July 1st, enacted a hands-free law, which means no electronic devices in the driver's hand whatsoever.
That makes sense to me.
Makes perfect sense. But moving from North Carolina, where I have my phone in my hand because I'm navigating with Google Maps, into Tennessee, I immediately was like, okay, I know about this law because I pay attention. I have friends who lived in Tennessee. But if I didn't, I can get in trouble here for something as simple as having a phone in my hand.
Yep. Because the law in North Carolina, I believe, is just sending text messages here. So
which is super
specifically
weird.
SMS messages.
It's super dumb. So you can do Facebook Messenger while you're driving completely fine.
Yeah, but no, that's interesting. Yeah, too. So the interesting part for me, I want to see is what states don't
100%
enact net neutrality laws. So if they don't, and let's say an ISP offers service there, but the ISPs have flat out said that they don't want to, like Verizon, AT&T, Spectrum, Comcast, they've all outright said they don't want to throttle other services and start a war basically that they don't want to. They can't really finish, because you're going to end up with a bunch of people fighting, and then laws are going to have to come back in place anyway. However, I'm interested to see how they're going to play with states that don't come on board. Like if they do decide they're going to cover that, or if they're going to start pushing those boundaries in states that don't enact net neutrality laws, because depending on where a company is based, like for example, the majority of tech companies are based in California.
Yeah.
So how's that going to work in a state where I guess you can't force a company that's not based in your state that offers online services to pay an ISP that's
true.
not offering service in the protected state, so this is where the interesting part comes in over the next couple of years of how this is going, how these like interstate borders are going to come into play here.
I think it obviously comes down to money, but I think there's another factor here of efficiency. Like how much work and effort does it take compared to how much money they can save to enact different rules as an ISP for California compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Like, California in and of itself, of course, it makes more sense to go with the norm. But if California, Texas, North Carolina, like all these tech states form similar rules, and that's a majority of where you're getting a ton of business, like of course you're going to want to just make it all right, whatever, screw it. So it could work out in the end to fix itself, but it's kind of hard to say at this point because again, comes down to the dollar bills.
Oh yeah, it depends on who's going to pay the most at this point, and what states are not going to be bought out.
So as we have said previously on multiple episodes, pay attention to your local government because it will matter whether or not you can watch Netflix on your current data plan.
I was honestly a little bit more disappointed actually that this news article didn't pop up at the top of some headlines today.
Oh, I agree 100%.
There were other things, of course, that showed up, but this net neutrality specifically being such a hot topic, I found one article.
I caught it on a tweet. And I catch a lot of stuff on Twitter that eventually like pops up. I found it exclusively on Twitter, like under one article, and then I went to all my normal sites and I'm like, wow, nobody's talking about this.
So I saw 2 CNET articles. Now I use Google News for most of this, which is Google's one of the companies that's for net neutrality. So if anything, I would have thought maybe they're going to push this, especially since I'm the kind of person who reads all of this and they try to tailor that. But anyway, I'm going through the technology section under internet, trying to figure out and that kind of thing. And it's the top item under internet. I didn't see it anywhere underneath, like latest. I didn't see it anywhere in the top news, that kind of thing. Like even in the curated stuff, it was kind of a weird spot to be in, and there were no other articles listed with it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah,
I guess maybe that this isn't a bigger deal, which is why I'm trying to talk about it.
Exactly why we're here.
I want people to understand and know what's going on because this is a big deal and can be a big deal in this regard. I think my favorite part still has been reading the rebuttals on why net neutrality rules are bad and what kind of things have come from it as a product of them being redacted. Like one of the things is that your internet speeds have increased by 40%. To be fair, our speeds here have been increased, but I don't understand how that even plays a role if they didn't do anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Is I feel I sniff a little bullshit here of like, the rules are gone away, so let's increase the speeds in order to be like, yeah, see, the rules are gone, so that helps.
So this is where, to me, first off, Trump's entire shady administration going on right now, and him being and Ajit Pai being part of it.
Yep.
I'm fearing some closed door conversations with the federal government in this regard.
Didn't Ajit Pai used to work for AT&T?
Verizon. Yeah.
Verizon. Okay.
Yeah. He was their not CTO. He was like head of their wireless division or head of their home internet division or something like that, like back, 5-10 years ago.
Gee, I wonder if he has any contacts.
Yeah, seriously. So I don't know how much of this is them just sort of playing into it, and I'll be honestly more interested to see what happens in the upcoming election and what might change
and how that affects it
in the next year and a half.
Okay. All right. Well, again, please pay attention to your local elections. And
absolutely.
Let us know in the comments that are slowly, actually amorphously masked right here as if they were John. They're not John, but they're kind of right here. It's okay, comments. It's okay. Let us know what you think about the net neutrality ruling.
I need help. He needs more help, but I need help.
Why do you think I'm pouring the wine? What's in the glass? And now the show is mine. And also let us know about what you thought about PlayStation Now, Last of Us 2, any questions, concerns, interest in any of these things we have discussed here on the show today. However, it is time for us to start the departure. So we will go ahead and move on to Last Call.
Last Call!
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Side to side worked for you that day.
I know, it works, every now and then. I feel like I'm getting it.
You just got to get the flick of the wrist.
I feel like I need to do back first, so this direction, and then that direction. Because the problem is I go too much force here.
You swing into the shelf.
Right in the shelf, yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, I've been forgetting to introduce our special guest because a lot of people were not very happy with it, but I'm an alcoholic and I enjoy talking about alcohol. So this week, we have an actual recommendation here from the dispatcher that I picked up at the store called Cooper and Thief Cellarmasters. And this is one of their Cellarmaster Select. This is a vintage of 2016, and it has been aged 3 months in a bourbon whiskey barrels. It's very, very delicious.
Yeah, it's definitely got a good flavor to it. This was a wonderful recommendation by the girlfriend. So.
Absolutely. And it is perfect size for the two of us to finish after the show. Of course, we do have a new month. It's October. Actually, it's October 1st today, which means new streamer of the month. It is our Patrick Akibab Hollyfield. He is on Mixer of all things. He is actually one of the few streamers I've seen of our group who's on Mixer. So please shout him out, give him a little bit of love, hop on over to Mixer, and you don't even have to waste one of your subs on Twitch because you can give it to one of our other people like B Scotch and Dots or Straya.
Stretta.
Thank you. I always do that. You know why? I'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
Akibab is also working on some YouTube videos, so stay tuned for that here in the near future. Of course, we also wanted to talk about our co-op crew. We've got Predator 4010.
Predator 420.
420, baby.
Predator 4010.
4010, and of course, our own Tumbleweed, who could not be with us tonight. We tried to get him on the same show as me. You guys demanded it, and he refused. Just putting it out there.
Been called out now.
But, of course, they've been playing through A Way Out. It is a wonderful game, and it's a great time watching the two of them game.
Yep. Episode 9, I think, just dropped today.
There we go. See? Check it out. It should be in the description somewhere.
Below.
We'll find out. We also have some cool shirts. You can see our dispatcher here is modeling one of them. I probably should have put mine on because it's here. I just didn't put it on. But I believe eventually we'll make these available in the future to everyone, so you can purchase them. They're fairly cheap. I believe it was $12 to $16.
That's not part of the logo, so it means Dylan did that by hand. Actually, I'm impressed.
You're impressed. I'm not even upset. I'm just impressed. But we have a couple other cool shirts we will probably be modeling over the course of the next couple weeks.
Absolutely.
And of course, you can always join our Discord. Please, there's a link in the description. Feel free to hop in. We have over 130 people at the moment, and it's constantly growing. Yep. We have a great general chat that is filled up with news, everything going on throughout the day. People love having discussions in there. They're
always conversation going on in one of the 15 or 20 channels that we have.
We even have a happy hour channel that you can come and talk to us on. So woot woot.
Other than the private one that we've got just for us.
Don't worry about that. And of course, I also want to talk about a really cool Humble Bundle. This is another Humble Bundle, separate from the one I talked about last week. That it has games like Broken Age and Dirt 4 going to a
Dirt
new
4,
charity. Again, you only need to spend $15. You get 10 games, so it's kind of hard to fight against that. I've myself obtained quite a few PlayStation games that will then go on sale. I'm like, oh, I should get that. Oh, I got it in the Humble Bundle. Look at that. Yeah. Past Brent, thinking of future Brent. But please check those out. They're all in the description below. Please make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, do something, or not. At least share with us why you didn't like the show if you don't like the show.
We love talking to you.
I do love chatting quite a bit, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Straya is a wolf in an anime called Wolf's Rain.
Interesting.
So every time I see his name, I just go, Straya. Nope, that's not it.
I'm more interested we didn't have a question of the week this week.
Oh my God.
Question of the week.
We're going back to it. We're still on. I actually have a question of the week. I didn't write it down specifically because this is a very specific question, near and dear to my heart.
Oh.
What happened to John Pettit?
What happened to John Pettit?
That's the question of the week. I'm going to go ahead and answer first.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that John effectively decided to retire.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not just from the podcast, in general. Like he says he's sick. But I saw behind him a beach. Now, he doesn't own a beach home, nor does he have a lot of money. So I don't think he's actively living in a house on the beach. I think he's actually just living on the beach.
Like couch surfing or something.
Correct. Not even couch surfing. No, I think he's just living on the beach.
Well, he's got that van, he could just
so he stole the van from
He could
work?
just be stealing the van from work and just sleeping in it, because the Marquee police was in the van. So,
That's fair. That's fair.
He could have just stolen it, disappeared to the beach, and
And that's what happened to John
never to
Pettit.
return. Yeah. I think what happened to John Pettit is that he decided to become the ultimate mountain man living out in the woods. He is going to become the Ginger Bigfoot.
The ginger. See, I like this idea that he eventually grows so much hair that people mistaken him for Bigfoot.
Exactly.
Even though he's not very tall.
He's
not short. He's not tall.
I just have an image of John living out there for several months or something like that. His clothes are very worn through and holes in it. He's just given up on a shirt or whatever, and he's just crouched in a corner next to some rocks or something like that, eating a squirrel that he just killed or something like that. As some
raw fish.
Some hikers are walking past or whatever. They're like, "Oh my God, what is that man doing?"
He's actually almost like an orangutan in a hoodie at this point.
Yeah, there you go.
His arm hair is growing out. I have no idea why this is happening to him. He's becoming very much like a lycanthrope. He's transforming.
He's been out in the sun so much his skin's just starting to wrinkle up, and everything. Yeah.
He looks like he might be 85 at this point. So please let us know what you think happened to John Pettit and why he wasn't on this week's episode.
No,
I
the comments below.
apologize for skipping over the question of the week.
That happens.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Another cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. Cheers.
Fake ending.